So, welcome everyone. I am delighted that you've joined us today. This is the first webinar in our On the Right Track, the Transformative Potential of Rail series. Today's webinar is The French Case, Stations as City Boosters. My name is Dr. Hilary Nixon, and I am Deputy Executive Director of the Moderator Transportation Institute at San Jose State University. MTI is a university transportation center funded by the U.S. Department of Transportation that leads 3 competitively selected multi-university consortia focused on improving the mobility of people and goods. MTI's mission is to increase mobility for all by improving the safety, efficiency, accessibility, and convenience of our nation's transportation system. We accomplish this through surface transportation research, technology transfer, education, and workforce development. In today's webinar, we launch into an expert-led exploration of 50 years of global high-speed rail innovation. Today, we begin in France, where we will look at stations in both small and large cities and learn how they serve as catalysts for regional growth. Before we begin, I really want to thank our co-sponsors. Thank you to the APTA High Speed and Intercity Passenger Rail Committee, California High Speed Rail Authority, and High Speed Rail Alliance for supporting this series and empowering all of us to learn more about the benefits of rail. Let me take a moment to introduce our moderator for today, Eric Eidlin. As the City of San Jose Station Planning Manager, he plays a leading role in the city's efforts to transform Diridon Station into a world-class multimodal hub. As a fellow of the German Marshall Fund of the U.S., Eric published a widely cited report on high-speed rail station planning in France and Germany that drew lessons for California. He holds a graduate degree in city planning, graduate degree in urban design from the University of Toronto, and a master's degree in city planning from the University of California, Los Angeles. Eric was previously named one of the top 40 transportation professionals under the age of 40 in North America. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you, Hilary. Excited to be here with you. As Hilary mentioned, this first webinar, it's going to look at notable station development efforts in France, representing cities of various sizes. Case studies include Lyon, Bordeaux, and Besançon. These examples demonstrate how holistic engineering and architectural design, as well as public-private partnerships in station development, can be critical in developing successful stations, both in the U.S. and here both in France and here in the U.S. as well. So I'd like to introduce our esteemed guest speaker, Fabrice Morenon. He is Managing Director of the French Railways Stations Group, SNCF Hub et Connexions, the arm of the French Railways that oversees the development of rail stations internationally. He holds a PhD in economics, and he has particular expertise in station development, financing, and operations. Morenon is a Knight of the French National Order of Merit and has been appointed French Foreign Trade Advisor by the French Prime Minister. He was also named chairman of the Global Stations Managers Group at the International of Railways, which we know as UIC. Welcome, Fabrice, and thank you for joining us so late in the evening. It is 9 p.m. for you, so thank you. With that, I'd like to turn it over to you to share your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Hilary. So I have the floor now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to share my presentation. Thank you for this introduction, Eric and Hilary. So I work for the French Railway Company, and I don't know if you know, it's a state, SNCF is a state-owned company. It's a French national railway company. It's a huge company. We make, roughly speaking, 50 billion euro or dollar of turnover each year. and you have within this group several subsidiary and departments. For instance, you have the high speed company in charge of high speed train, but also on intercity train, regional train. We also have the SNCF, the network in charge of the tracks, and regarding the station management and development, this is a company named Gare and Connexions, and I run one of the subsidiary in charge of international development, hubs and connection. We also have dedicated subsidiary regarding architecture and urbanism, AREP, and retail and connections in charge of retail development in the station. And the core business of this subsidiary is to develop, the non-fare box revenue for the SNCF group. We also have different subsidiaries such as Keolis in charge of metro, tramways, and for instance, Keolis is settled in the US. For instance, is in charge of the commuter trains in nearby Washington D.C. It runs, for instance, the Virginia Railway Express, and also the bus in Las Vegas and different. And he also have different contract in the US and Canada. Very briefly, our business is just to design, to manage, to develop a railway station in France because it's our core business, but as well internationally. So we master all the different expertises regarding the station management and development. Very briefly as well, we are settled in different countries and different continents. Today, my point is I want to highlight one thing, and if there is only one thing to remember, it's that railway station creates added value, for the territory, and when I start this kind of presentation, I wish I could ask you a question, but when it's online, it's more difficult, to have an open discussion, with all the people online. But the question is, do you know why, when we have a retail in the station, why you make more benefit in the station than outside of the station or in the neighborhood? Is it because the tenants are better, are more qualified, or is there another reason? And I'm just going to give you the answer. The only reason is the concentration of the flow of passenger. When you are in a station or in a hub of transportation, you have a lot of people in a restricted area. So it's easier, to make money and to have a higher turnover for your retail and for your shop. And that's one of the main benefits, of this station. But overall, railway station like this, like a transit-oriented development station, you create value not only for the building but also for the neighborhood, and that's the point that I want to develop and to present to you today. I'm going to start with some very quick example of why when you create a station or when you create a new high-speed line, you will create value, employment for your territory. I will just share with you one or two examples. In France, for instance, we made a survey. It was 3 or 5 years ago, and we assessed that when you create one job in the station, you create 6 jobs around the station. When you invest €1 or $1 in the station for a renovation project, it will drive to €4 or $4 expenses around the station. So it's a real economic driver for the territory and for the people who live and work around the station. And we have so many examples that I can share with you, but I just wanted to share with you these 2 main figures. This is another example. And so this is example. So you have the project development and the name of the station. Maybe you don't know this city because it's big city in France, but it's not international, cities. But the point is, you have the investment in the station in euro or in dollar, and then you have the economic impact. And the only thing to remember or that I want to highlight or to stress, it's you have a better impact or you have a better economic driver if you work very closely, if you have a very close work between the railway operator and the city government. That's the key. That's the key which explains why you have a better impact, for instance, in Marseille station than in Bordeaux station. That's the key. And the job and the business of a railway operator or a station manager is to work with all the stakeholders of the station. And when you say the stakeholder, it's the railway operator, it's the private investor, the public government, all the people, but also all the communities around the station that are involved in the life and the business of the station. Another point that I want to point out to stress is that when you design a station, when you have to respect, the local identity of the territory and of the people. And those 2 examples, which are Meuse high-speed station, which is located, I'll say, in the middle of nowhere in France. It's a wood building station. And it would be, something very crazy to build a kind of, a huge building with or a skyscraper in the middle of the countryside, however, it's very relevant, to build such a building in the countryside. And it's the same thing, for the station here, Besançon Franche-Comté high-speed station, which is a green station, and you have an harmony between the station and around and the land around the station. And that's very key to respect, the identity of the territory when you decide to build or to develop a station redevelopment. So that was the main idea that I wanted to highlight. Now I'm going to share with you some case study to be more concrete regarding the station development. So I don't know if some of you have ever been in Paris Saint-Lazare. It's located in Paris downtown. It's definitely a transit-oriented development project, and you can see here on the station plaza. So this is the entrance of the subway. You have bicycle over there. You have motorcycle here. You have the car. You have a parking underground here under the main entrance, and you have buses over there. So it's definitely a hub of transportation with multimodality. When we decided, and that's the example of of the offer of multimodal transport with line, parking, car, parking slot, and taxi, etc., etc. So the point was, when we decided to refurbish this station, it was 10 years ago. the stake were, first of all, to increase the station capacity. Then we also have to develop the in-station shopping, and then obviously we wanted to improve the quality for the customer, the service quality and the customer satisfaction of all the people and all the visitors of the station. And then we have to develop, you know, all the links between the station and the neighborhood. Because at this time, SNCF Group had not enough money, we could not afford such an investment. We decided to set up a private-public partnership with a realty developer. So SNCF invested $90 million in the project, and Klépierre, the realty developer, invested $160 million. Then we designed a long-term lease of 40 years, and in that model, SNCF manages the station and all the public spaces, and Klépierre manages, you know, the shopping mall. And what is very interesting in this model, it means that Klépierre pays also a rent to SNCF on the shopping mall. So it's a win-win operation for the realty developer and for SNCF who have refurbished the station with less equity. Few figures that I want to share with you. You know, Saint-Lazare Station, it's one of the biggest stations in Europe because it's 110 million passengers per year, which is very, very important. It's a big shopping mall, and what we have observed is that 55%, of the visitors make at least one purchase in the station, which is very, very efficient and it's a very good news for us because it improves, you know, the non-fare box revenue of the station. So that was the first example, and the example was designed, created, and implemented 10 years ago. And because it was a real achievement for us and for the company, then we decided, you know, to duplicate and to scale this model for the station development. Another case is the Bordeaux high-speed railway station. Bordeaux is located in the southwest part of France. It's basically well known for the good wine of Bordeaux, and it's here, you know, on the map. And basically, when you wanted to travel from Paris here to Bordeaux, it took a 3.5-hour journey with train. Then we implemented a high-speed line between Paris and Bordeaux, and now it takes only 2 hours. So it's a kind of revolution because thanks to this high-speed train, we have observed an incredible increase of the people who wants to visit, to work, and to live in Bordeaux, because now it's very convenient. It's very short trip if you want to travel between those two cities. So we had to enlarge, you know, the railway station to be able to welcome in very good condition all the new passenger and visitor who wanted to experience, you know, the train and the station. So it was a very impressive project. It was so we invested 212 million euro in the station or dollars, and it was an investment of, roughly speaking, 5 billion euro in the neighborhood. And we observe an increase of the passenger from 11 million to 18 million between 2009 and 2020. And to finance such investment, first of all, we had a public financing, and the main stakeholder were the city of Bordeaux, the region of Bordeaux, the European Commission, and the French government. But with only the public part, we cannot it was impossible to balance the budget. So we had to found private financing. And we mainly balance the budget thanks to the creation of car parks and new residents in the station and around the station. And thanks to this, we finance 40% of the global investment of the station. So it was very, very interesting, and it was a very good deal. 40% of private funding out of it. The cost of the station was around 100 million euros. So it was 40 million euro investment thanks to the private part of this project. And when I'm talking about, station as city booster or economic drivers for the territory, I just want to highlight one figure. Thanks to this project, we created, well, I say 20,000 jobs in the city of Bordeaux, and we have assessed the added value at 2 billion euro for the city. And we have also observed an increase, of the housing, an increase of the number of tourists, of visitors of the city, thanks to this high-speed line. And obviously, the turnover of the station has also doubled between 2014 and 2018. The point is that what is important when you decide, to run such project, first of all, you have to take into account, all the environment of the station, and this environment is always complex. You have to take into account, the culture, the commercial activities, the catchment area of the station. Then you have to deal with all the community around the station. I remember an example in Paris. We wanted to develop a new shopping mall in Paris North Station with new tenants, new shops, and because the neighborhood and the people who lived nearby the station were opposed, were not in favor of this project. But what at the end we had to stop it and to reshape the project into another project, more I will say with less shopping area and less retail area in the station, because it was not in harmony with the neighborhood. And that's the point of Bordeaux. And Bordeaux, it's a real achievement because we have learned that when you decide to implement this project, a train station, it's a gateway of the territory. When you arrive in a city by train, it's the first impression that you have when you go outside of the station. Well, first impression of the station, then you go in the city. So it's a gateway. It's a showcase of your city. And train stations are always, always a part of a larger development and transport schemes, where you have to combine local, regional, and even national scale. And, if you want to create, you know, a very efficient PPP approach for your station, you have to find, you know, the right partner. I mean, sometimes you want to present, you know, when I make such presentation, the good practice. But sometimes it's also very interesting to highlight what was not as good as we expected. And I remember that example in Pioneer Station. We had chosen the partner who was very, very focused on the retail development. But we did not have the same value, the same culture, you know, for, you know, ridership, and he wanted not to build a railway station with a shopping mall. He wanted to build a shopping mall with a station. So we were not aligned, you know, nor on the mindset, nor on the key and main objective and goals to achieve. So at the end, as I told you, we had to stop this project because we, as a matter of fact, we didn't speak the same languages between us. And as a conclusion, I don't know if some of you had the opportunity to visit Paris during the Olympics. I just want to come back very briefly on this, or maybe, I don't know, Eric and Hilary, maybe if there is question on the station development, on the city booster or station as city booster, I don't know, and after maybe I can take one or two questions on this subject, and maybe on the Olympics, because it's not exactly the same topic. So
yeah, I think actually we have a whole bunch of questions. So maybe we should pause and discuss some of those right now, if that's okay. So let's see. Well, we'll start with Heidi, who asked about the public-private partnership you mentioned between SNCF and the developer. She asked, what role does the city play in stationary planning, especially on parcels not owned by the developer? And maybe also if you can talk about typically, like, what do these private investors, what do they expect first from the public sector in order to be interested in the opportunity to begin with?
I'm going very transparent and frank. They only expect the return on equity.
Okay.
That's it. When you start the discussion, well, they study the project, the budget, but very, very quickly, the question is, what is the return on equity?
Got you.
You know, but conversely for us, well, it's important because we have equity and we have to answer to our stakeholder, to the government. But you know, our main contribution, our main stake, is the satisfaction of customer. It's the safety and the security of the passenger in the station, is to answer to the railway operator and to offer a convenient, large, likely station, etc., etc. It's not only the return on equity, even if we have to balance the budget to make money, of course, but that's not our main business. It's one of the objective, of course, but not only.
Thank you. Still on the topic of public subsidies. So Mark asks, does the SNCF get an annual operating subsidy from the French national government? And is there generally public support for that? Does that get challenged? Yeah.
Well, it could take hours to explain and to develop, the French system, but well, when we decide to refurbish a station or to create a new station, most of the time, the financial model is that the public sector. Well, I will make the difference between the biggest station and the smallest station. The biggest station, such as Saint-Lazare or Paris Nord Station, Paris Austerlitz, we try to mitigate the public funding with private investor. And it's possible because, and I'm going very direct and straight as well, it's possible because those stations are very profitable and you can implement offices, retail, shop, whatever you want, or economic activities within the station or nearby, and you can make money on this. And that's why private investor wants to run those business. So it's possible in Bordeaux, in Paris, to have car park, to have, I don't know, hotel, restaurant, and that's the point. However, when you are in the smallest station, and when I say smallest station, yes, exactly. I will answer to Moyen Hall after. And in the smallest station in France, it's 90% of the 3,000 stations in France. We finance the development and refurbishment of a station only with SNCF equity and public subsidies. That's it. And the public subsidy comes from local governments and the national governments. And however, on a bigger project, I will say, if I have to provide you and to share with you figures, I will say most of the time it's yes, between 40 and 60% of public subsidies and 40% of private financing. It's a nightmare. It's a dream. It's a dream to think that you can finance a project with 100% of private financing. I think it's a dream. Maybe you can do it. Maybe in Hong Kong, or maybe in some, but very, very tricky, very, very difficult.
Thank you. So there was a question here, an interesting one. You had mentioned in your presentation that there is sometimes opposition to too much commercial development in the stations, and what's the main reason for that? Is it, congestion? Is it people not being able to get to their trains? Is it people who want to drive their cars to the station?
Yes, of course, yes. Well, first of all, as you mentioned it, it's like when you go in the duty-free zone or area in an airport where you have to walk through all the shop before going to the boarding gate. So in the station, people don't want to go in so many shops before going to the platform. And especially when you are in a big station with a huge flow of passenger, it could be very dangerous, when you have to manage the flow of passenger to have a retail in the middle of the flow of passenger. So as a main first target, security and safety of the passenger. So we have to take into account this, and then we decide of the location of the retail in the station. But first of all, we study, the path of the passenger in the station before designing, before the interior design of the station and the settlement of the shop.
Gotcha. So that sort of touches on Thomas's question too. He asks, when retail is overemphasized in stations, does wayfinding, seating, and you just touched on circulation. So your answer is you need to set the passenger flow as your first step, and then you can sort of mold the retail around that once you've figured that out. There was another, a more general question that was submitted before, and it was about asking about station siting. Okay. So when you're building new, the question's about building new stations. And in the case of, the big old French cities, typically you do have a very old historic station that's already important. And then in Paris in particular, right, you go to a station based on your destination. So you have these,
Yes.
sub-end station, terminal stations, as you say in French. But the examples of Lille, for example, you didn't talk about Lille today, but and Lyon, those are cities sort of midway on their way to other destinations, and those cities had to make big decisions. And in both cases, they decided on central city locations for their new facilities. Do you want to talk just a minute about that decision making? Where do you build a station and for what reason?
Yes. Well, in France and in Europe, you have obviously, it's a result of history, and because we built, the railway network in the 19th century, and for instance, in Paris, it was historically, it was, as we say, dead end station. And you have one dead end station at each part of the city, and it's like in Marseille, or it's a dead end station. But you also have pass through station, as you mentioned it, or like just behind you, Strasbourg station. Yes, Strasbourg station. It's a heritage station, and it's a pass through station, and it really depends, of the constraint as Lille of the railway. And for instance, I don't know if it's very difficult to answer. I will say it's very different. You always have different cases, so it depends, of the location of the station, if it's a downtown station or not. Historically, stations were built outside of the city because of the smoke of the train. But with the development of the housing and the city, then now, for instance, in Strasbourg or in Nice, now the station, or Bordeaux, now the stations are in the city. So it's different, and you have. It also depends, of the route. If you have a very important constraint for building the route, and if you have to pay, for instance, a bridge, which is very expensive to build a new bridge or new infrastructure for your line, you could make the decision to build or a dead-end station or a pass-through station. And you also have, and I guess it's the same thing in the United States, you also have strong discussion with the local governments, who sometimes they want to support, or they want to have their own station or not. So you have to take into consideration all these factors, and at the end you will have a pass-through station or dead-end station for your high-speed line.
Right. Well, I like to say, train stations, there's some of my former students here, right? And I make them think a lot about, what's the purpose of cities, right? And then, very generally, but then why is rail particularly well suited to cities, right? It's because rail helps cities do what they do best, which is, right, to facilitate exchange. They bring in a lot of people without the need for a lot of space. And if you design them well, like some of the examples you've shown today, you can bring all those people in without having a lot of negative impact on the urban quality of life. And so the Saint-Lazare example is a very good. In fact, bringing all those people in by rail is a good thing for those stations and neighborhoods. If you do it by car, it's a very bad thing, right? You have pollution, and the system breaks down, of course.
Yes, if I can jump on your word, Eric. I mean, when you build, or when you redevelop a station. As a matter of fact, you don't build a building. As a matter of fact, you build a part of the city. It's always a part of the neighborhood that you try to redevelop or to reshape. And that's why it's very important. A station is not an airport. An airport, most of the time, it's outside of the city. There is no link, or it's very difficult. And you also have a check-in before going to the airport. The city, it's an open space between, the city, the neighborhood, and the platform. So it's connected, it's linked, and it's a part of the city. And I think that's the tricky part, because you have homeless people in the station, because sometimes it's cold in the airport, and you have so many challenges to take up in a station that you don't have to take up in an airport. But on the opposite, it's always the very good part and the very, I would say, not charming, but it's the very good thing of the station that I like this more in harmony. I mean, it's in harmony, with, all between the people, the building, and everything around the station.
Yeah.
It's as you say, seamless. It's a seamless connection, between the neighborhood and the station.
Yeah. Yeah,
sorry, I'm
right.
talking too much.
No. The station, I mean, from an urban standpoint, it needs to be, integrated into the city, as you're saying, and it at the same time has to seamlessly integrate different transportation modes that serve different geographies, so people at different scales. So yeah, so I've heard people say a great station facilitates mobility across scales, but it also does everything that you've emphasized in your presentation today. I think we probably only have time for one more, and that is, people often, we hear from folks from Europe and, France in particular, sometimes, and we hear about the success stories. And then some people, will say, well, France is very different from the US. The society is different. There's a greater tradition of riding trains. And then, of course, the government is much more centralized. The government has more authority. So I think we all appreciate those big differences. What would you say, nevertheless, is relevant from the French experience for the US as we, invest in many of these kinds of facilities?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that even conversely to France, in the US, you don't have very ancient culture for the train because of the car and airplane. But I think you should try to experience train, because what we observe, I say in France, but as well in Europe, when you have implemented high-speed train between two cities, it's a revolution. It's a revolution of the territory, and you will think about differently between, for instance, going between San Francisco and Los Angeles, if you have a high-speed line, or if you have to take the plane or to take your car. And it will be an overall, well, you have to take into account, the price, the time, and also the impact on the green and the carbon emission. But overall, I will say it's a different experience. Taking the train, it's a stressless experience, because you take the train in the city. You don't have to go with a taxi or with a bus or coach, to the airport. You go from, it's a door-to-door experience. You go from one point in the city and you go to another city, and it's very, very. I think it's very good experience as a traveler.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Fabrice. Unfortunately, we've run out of time.
Yes,
we have many questions that I wasn't able to get to, and we weren't able to get to your a couple slides on the Olympics. But we'll have
Next
to do
time,
another,
Eric, next time.
yeah, we'll have to do another one focusing on, you know,
Okay.
making the most of big events. And of course, you know, we're looking ahead toward 2028 and the Los Angeles Olympics. So
Yes,
there are
of course.
lessons to learn there from Paris as well. So in any case, I'd like to wrap up. So thank you so much, Fabrice, for joining us, especially, you know, with it being so late for you. If you enjoyed today's sessions, be sure to mark your calendar for the next webinar in the series. We'll continue learning from the success of high-speed rail in Spain by hearing from Eduardo Romo, president of the Fundación Caminos de Hierro. Mark your calendars for January 15th. More details, including the registration link, will be available soon. And finally, if you're interested in learning more about the many benefits of high-speed rail, be sure to check out the opportunity to experience them in person. Dr. Asha Weinstein-Agarwal and I will be leading a high-speed rail adventure across Europe starting May 29th of next year. This immersive study abroad experience offers a first-hand view of successful rail station mega projects in France and Spain. We will visit Fabrice, among other people. It is open to upper division undergrads and graduate students, and any graduate who has a minimum of a 3.0 GPA, as well as working professionals. So we'll put a link in the chat for you to learn more. Okay.